Okay, I'm calling to order the November 27, 2017 Board of Directors meeting.
Madam Chair, I move to make a motion, please.
Todd, you want to make a motion?
I'd like to nominate Kate Darby as board chair.
Hold on a minute.
No,
I actually meant to adopt the agenda
talk
first.
first.
Well, no,
Then it had to be adopted.
well, we're just doing the,
I move to adopt the agenda as written. I mean, that is the first thing we do.
I
second.
Thank you.
My motion is to adopt the agenda, but to move the election to the regular board meeting at 5 p.m., 5:15,
okay.
like we normally do.
So Todd has a motion, you've got a motion, and Cindy has a motion.
So,
But let's just real quickly
Adopt the agenda
address.
first.
Okay, so we're going to adopt the agenda.
I was going to say, rather than following Robert's rules, I think that Chris is correct. We need to adopt the agenda. So there's
Okay.
a motion on the floor and a second to adopt the
So there's
agenda.
a motion on the floor and a second
And
to
Chris
adopt the
would
agenda.
like to make a friendly amendment to that
I was
motion.
before she was, too. I was before she was.
Okay.
My motion is staying first. My motion was that we move the election to the 5:15, regularly scheduled board meeting time, as we always do.
That's,
Okay.
Okay, so
That
do you-
doesn't take anything from anybody. That's just how we normally do business.
it's not, and I sent you the agendas of the last 6 years showing you that, but I do think it's a worthy motion to be voted on.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the agenda and to move the election of officers to the 5:15 portion of the meeting. Is that correct?
Open session, yes.
The way that works is we have to, since I'm not accepting the friendly amendment, we have to vote on whether to amend
It's
that,
not
my
her- It's not her
motion.
motion, Madam Chair.
Okay, all right, I got you. Okay, so Todd, you
Yes.
made the motion first. Are
Yes.
you okay with us voting on the motion about,
I'd rather move forward with the agenda as it was written and distributed last Wednesday.
You can't move with his emotion because Chris was talking first.
Okay, so
Todd,
You can replay the tape. I said, Madam Chair,
Right.
before Chris
But
said
you
anything.
did.
His motion was on the nomination. Mine was to adopt the agenda.
right, and typically when we call to order, we don't adopt the agenda before we go into executive session. So, I mean, what you're trying to do is have the election at 5:15. But
Well,
Todd made a
well-
motion before that, so we need to,
You can do the nomination, but normally you adopt the agenda
Make the motion
first.
before
That's first
that.
business, adopt the agenda.
They both spoke at the same time, but Chris started first.
So Chris is making a motion to not adopt the agenda, and, so what is your motion, Chris?
But that motion is out of order because it's not in accordance with the agenda as written. And I made my motion
That we
first.
adopt the agenda, so we can amend the agenda then, that we'll have the chair and vice chair election at the 5:15 board meeting. That's the way the other way we can do it.
I'd rather move forward now.
I'm
So
sure you do.
Todd-
But as it was written, and, I mean, this is changing something that was submitted to the public.
This is what we do year to year, though. We always
It's
have.
not, if you look back last year, we opened it
the
at 4,
14
we
or 10
immediately
or
voted.
11.
If you look at the year
So,
before we opened,
Reverend
we
Collins,
immediately
wait.
voted.
So,
Look at the year before that. You know, I've been on board
Be-
5 years.
I've been
Every
in 9
year,
because
as soon as
we
we
know
open,
because
any
of the
new board
reception.
members, you take the oath of office, you vote
Yes.
immediately.
Okay,
When I
so-
was appointed on October 28th, right before the election, it immediately
That
changed
is
from Chris
true.
Frazier to Cindy Coates as soon as I was
That's
sworn
true.
in.
I'm not arguing that, but the
Okay.
point I'm arguing is that it's always at the 5:15 meeting. It's not a special call meeting at 3 o'clock.
Point of order, this
It's
is
always-
not.
So if we're
Wait a
going
minute,
to,
hold on,
Point.
hold on,
That's
hold
not
on.
order.
Reverend
within
Collins,
Robert's rules.
everybody on this
Wait,
side of the
wait,
table.
he's gonna say his piece. I can
Wait
say
a minute,
mine,
hold
too.
on a second. It's not a special called meeting. We're starting the we start at 3 o'clock, like many days we start at 4 o'clock or we start at 3:30. So we're starting the meeting, we're taking this action, then we go into executive session. So Todd has a motion on the floor. Do we have a second to that motion?
I make a motion, Madam Chair.
Do we have a second on the first one? though?
Second.
We have a second, all right, so we have a motion from Todd and a second. We also have which we need to vote on first, then we have a motion from Reverend Collins, one from Cindy, and Kevin, what is your motion?
My motion that we recommend, that we make Reverend Eric Mack Chair of Charleston County School Board.
It's Todd motion is 2 or 1. He made a nomination. He didn't make a motion on the agenda. He made a nomination. He said, I nominate Kate
Right,
Darby.
right.
That was his motion he made.
Right,
And my motion wasn't that. My motion was that we adopt the agenda then amended that the board chair and lecture would be at 5:15. That was my motion.
I got you.
Okay.
So Todd has a motion and a second, and then Reverend Collins has a motion about moving when we do the election, and then Cindy had a motion that we adopt the agenda, and then Kevin has a motion that Reverend Mack be chair. So do we have a second for Reverend Collins's motion?
I'll second Reverend Collins.
Okay, do we have a second for Cindy's motion?
I seconded already.
You seconded Todd's motion?
No,
And
she seconded.
Cindy's
No,
already.
and both.
Yep.
I did
Oh,
both.
both, okay, you did both, sorry, I didn't hear that. And do we have a second for Kevin's motion?
You don't need a second for that, for nomination.
Okay,
Anybody can nominate, you don't need a second for that.
Okay.
okay.
I have a
So
question.
yes,
The question is what, historically, when we come out, 5 of us come out, we adopt the agenda, right?
Yes.
We call the meeting to order, and then there's a motion to adopt the agenda.
there's not always, there's an emotion to go into executive
I
session.
mean, a motion to go into
Yes,
executive
yes.
session. Have we done that yet? We haven't
We
done that
haven't
yet.
done that yet because last.
I mean, have we, I know you,
I've called the meeting to order.
Oh, okay, okay.
Haven't, yeah, called the meeting to order. Hasn't-
that went by so quick, I wasn't even sure
I
if that
did do
even
that.
happened.
But last year, when the board meeting in November, the very first thing we did was call the meeting to order and elect officers. And in previous years, that's what we did. Today, we are starting early because we have a lot on the agenda, so.
We didn't approve
Okay.
that to the board, it's just something you randomly did.
No,
No,
it's
we
not
didn't.
random.
It's not
I sent
something
you- I
random.
sent you.
Read back the minutes from
I
the
sent you
last 4
6
to 5
attachments.
November.
Take
Yeah,
a
I
look at
sent
last
every
year.
member of the board 6 attachments of 6 different years in which the board meetings started at 3, 3:15, 3:45, or 4 o'clock on the day the chair and the vice chair were voted on.
Plus,
This
yo,
is
we
not
sent this
abnormal.
agenda out to everybody. We didn't. Portia sent this agenda out. If somebody wanted to change it, we should have given some feedback then. So, we're going to vote on Todd's motion first. Mr. Hollingshedd, how do you vote?
Wait, say his motion, what is his motion?
Todd's motion.
Kate Darby to be
Chris is
president,
first.
to be
No, we
chair.
vote on Todd's first. So Todd's
This is
motion
Todd's
is for
motion.
For Kate Darby to be reelected as chair.
Nay.
Okay, Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Reverend Collins?
No.
Ms. Jeffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
No.
Mr. Stobbs?
Yes.
Reverend Mack?
I haven't slept in a week.
And I vote yes, the
Why?
motion passes. So it really makes your motion moot, Reverend
I don't
Collins,
know.
But
about moving the vote to later in the agenda.
I don't think it does.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to vote,
Just call the vote on it.
okay,
On what?
so although we've just, Reverend Collins wants us to still vote on.
Why don't
mo-
we, let's not be silly. Why don't we go ahead and make a motion that Reverend Mack be vice chair?
Okay, so we have a.
Second.
So we have a motion from Mr. Stobbs that Reverend Matt be vice chair, and we have multiple seconds. All right, Mr. Hollingshedd, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Reverend Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Jeffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes?
Mr. Stobbs?
Yes.
Reverend Mack? And I vote yes, the motion passes. Do I have a motion to go into
Motion to
executive?
go into executive session.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye, all right, going into executive session. Okay, we're going to call the November 27th, 2017 meeting back to order. Can we stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I move to adopt the agenda as written.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt the agenda as written. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Question.
There's a
Question.
question.
Yeah, I want to, pull out the James Allen bus lot piece.
Okay, so
And Michael and Kevin support that?
So we have a motion to approve the agenda, and we have a second, and then Reverend Collins would like to pull out the James Island bus lot item off the consent agenda, which is item 11.5C. So we need at least 3 to support that.
We have Michael and Kevin already agreed to it.
Okay, well, Michael's not here. Right
Michael's-
here.
He did.
Right
Yeah,
here,
he's
where
in the
are you?
back.
Michael, pull out the bus lot.
So Michael? Yes. Okay, Kevin, do you?
Yeah, I agree with it.
All right, so we're going to pull item 11.5C out of the consent agenda, and we'll put that,
Put it after visitors' comments.
we'll put it at committee reports.
Yeah,
That's
it can, the three votes gets it to committee reports, but if you want to make a motion to put it at the top, we can make a
I'm
motion.
not putting it to the top, yeah, right after the
Make a
visitors'
motion, and we have to vote on
All right,
that.
so, okay, guys, so Reverend Collins wants to put the bus lot item after public comments. Or is that all right?
So there's a motion on,
Well,
is there,
yes, there's a motion on the floor and a second to approve the agenda, including the consent agenda, pulling item 11.5C, and it's now behind visitor and public comments. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
No.
Any opposed? All right,
Yes.
So Mr. Garrett was opposed. Okay, so we have minutes to approve. We have the open session minutes from October 23rd, the special called meeting from November 2nd.
I move to approve 5-1A and B, A, B, and C, excuse me.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve 5-1, A, B, and C, and a second. All right, Mr. Hollingshedd, these are approving the minutes. How do you vote?
All right.
Ms. Coates?
yes.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Reverend Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Jeffrey?
I wasn't here for those meetings.
Okay. Sorry, I'm in backwards because you all
Well, aye,
moved. Mr.
aye.
Miller?
Well, aye,
Mr. Staubs?
Say aye.
Accepted into the public record.
Reverend Mack? Yes. And I vote yes, so the motion passes. The next item on the agenda are a couple of,
Madam Chair, I move to accept the superintendent's evaluation as part of the public record.
okay, so we have a motion
What
from
are the numbers at? I'm sorry.
number one.
6-1A, 1.
1A.
Second.
6-1.
6-1A-1. Yep.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion and 2 seconds. Do we have any discussion on that? All right. Mr. Hollingshedd?
All right.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Reverend Collins?
Come back to me.
Mr. Miller? Aye. Ms. Jeffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Staubs?
Yes.
Reverend Mack?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Reverend Collins?
Okay, 6-1A1, 6-1A1, yes.
Yes. Okay. The next item on the agenda is a student transfer appeal for student 125.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the
Second.
transfer.
Okay,
Second.
so we have a motion to approve for Mr. Garrett and a second from Reverend Collins. Mr. Hollingshedd? how do
Madam
you-
Chair, may I ask a
Yeah.
question? Is this a motion to overturn the constituent board decision?
Yes. Mr. Hollingshedd?
All right.
Ms. Coates?
No.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Reverend Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Jeffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Staubs?
No.
Reverend Mack?
No.
And I vote yes, the motion passes. The next item on the agenda is number 61A3, a student placement appeal. This is,
I'll make a motion.
okay, Reverend Collins?
I'll move to place a student at Turning Point Academy
Okay,
Second.
with all necessary support in place.
okay, so there's a motion and a second to place the student at Turning Point Academy
Madam Chair, may I ask a question?
with all the appropriate
Support.
supports.
Until we have a verdict, or whatever we word, until the situation is resolved.
Okay?
Is
A question from Ms. Dobbs, Ms. Coates, sorry.
is there is the location of Turning Point based on where they attend school, or how is that location?
Yeah.
Okay, so that location is already selected?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so we have a motion to place the student at Turning Point Academy. Mr. Hollingshedd?
All right.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Reverend Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Jeffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Staubs?
Yes.
Reverend Mack?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion passes. The next item on the agenda is a contractual matter.
Yes, for B1, I make a motion to direct staff to negotiate an offer to purchase the property in District 1.
Okay?
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any questions about that? So this is a motion to direct staff to negotiate an offer to purchase the D1 land, correct? All right, Mr. Hollenshed?
Aye.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Reverend Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Jeffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Staubs?
Yes.
Reverend Mack?
Yes.
And I vote yes, and the motion passes. The next item is the contractual matter for
D9.
D9.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we direct staff to enter negotiations to acquire the option.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any questions? Mr. Hollenshed?
No.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Garrett?
No.
Reverend Collins?
This is a D9, right?
No.
Mr. Miller?
This is D9 contractual matter, correct?
Yes.
Aye.
Ms. Jeffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Staubs?
Yes.
Reverend Mack?
Yes.
Something changed?
And I vote yes, the motion passes. The next item is, that we have two other contractual matters. The first one is, what was item 3, so, during our executive session discussion.
Move to approve the lease.
Yeah, all right, so do we want to, I thought we wanted to direct staff.
Direct staff to negotiate a contract to acquire the cellular equipment leases.
Okay?
Second.
So we have a motion from Todd and a second from Mr. Miller to direct staff to negotiate a contract to acquire the cellular equipment leases, correct? All right, Mr. Hollenshed?
Aye.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Reverend Collins?
No.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Jeffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Staubs?
Yes.
Reverend Mack?
No.
And I vote yes.
No idea.
Motion passes. The next contractual matter is to
I
authorize.
move to authorize staff to execute a modification to the student transportation contract.
Second.
Okay, so Todd made the motion and Michael seconded. Any questions on that? All right, Mr. Hollenshed,
Aye.
Ms. Coates,
No.
Mr. Garrett,
Yes.
Reverend Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Ms. Jeffrey,
Yes.
Mr. Staubs,
Yes.
Reverend Mack,
Yes.
and I vote yes, the motion passes. The next item is,
Madam Chair, I move to apply the additional 1% cost of living COLA increase for administrators to the 2017-2018 salary schedule and implement the changes in December. And just,
This is my one.
yes.
okay, so we have a motion, do we have a second? Mr. Miller? Okay, so this is.
And just to make clear, it's a midstream correction that was budgeted fully back in June, but was not applied yet because.
So applying
yeah.
it now.
Yes.
Okay, any questions on that? Mr. Hollenshed?
Aye.
Who seconded that?
I did.
Michael did.
Mr. Miller?
Mr. Miller did, sorry. Mr. Hollenshed?
Aye.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Reverend Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Jeffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Staubs?
Yes.
Reverend Mack?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion passes. The next item is,
Okay.
do we have a motion?
Yes.
for the
Madam
se-
Chair, I move to approve the substitute rate changes as proposed today with the minimum hourly wage at $12.50 per hour.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a
May I ask a
second.
clarifying question?
And
Yes,
Is that for assistants and teachers?
That's the
Yes.
minimum, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion.
Maximum is, just for clarification, is 256 per hour and that would be the highest level if retired or currently certified teachers who aren't working for the district want to come back, they're able to do so at their existing rate. So-
Okay, Dr. Postoli has a question?
This clarification, that's for substitutes, not for assistants.
Substitute
Sub-
assistant
okay,
teachers.
correct. Yeah, this is strictly substitute rate pay changes.
I'm
Yep.
trying to get everybody a pay raise.
Okay, so this is,
For clarification, are you?
They are, yeah.
hold on, Reverend Mack has a
What,
question.
are you making a modification to the presentation that was already made, or what are you saying, Tony?
Yes, and just setting the bottom level at 1250 now.
For substitute,
50 cent an hour more.
I think Eric stepped out of
The adjustment that we talked about.
so they'll get at least $12.50 an hour.
Instead of 12, it might be 12.50.
All right, any question, Mr. Brigman?
Substitute teacher, right, not TA.
Correct.
Correct. Yes.
We'll come back
Correct.
with assistant teachers.
Okay.
So
So can we make sure
basically,
that we have the
This is to
motion?
approve the recommended proposal for increases of both substitute teachers and teacher assistant pay rates effective December 1, and to change the minimum for substitute teachers to at least $12.50,
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
So all do get a raise.
okay? For substitute teachers. Okay? Everybody clear on that?
Yes.
Mr. Hollenshed?
Aye.
Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Mr. Garrett?
Yes.
Reverend Collins?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Jeffrey?
Yes.
Mr. Staubs?
Yes.
Reverend Mack?
Yes.
And I vote yes, the motion passes. And the next item on our agenda is special recognitions.
Good evening, Chair Darby, Vice Chair Mag, board members, Dr. Postlewaite. We have two special recognitions this evening, and I'd first like to ask Wayne Wiltshire, our Director of Procurement, to come forward.
Good evening, Chairman Darby, Vice Chair Mack, members of the board, Dr. Postlewaite, and guests. The district annually receives a rebate from the P-card program from Bank of America. This year's rebate amount is $192,451.97, which is a $28,860.46 increase from last year. Dr. Postlewaite and Chairman Darby, if you'll come forward. Also, I'd like to ask Kelly Myers and Robert McNeil to come forward. Kelly Myers' department is very instrumental in us receiving this rebate, and Robert McNeil is the one who supervises the P-card program.
Got more money. Put that money in the classroom. Put that money in the classroom. Can I photobomb?
See, that's why you're in that chair.
I'm a photobomb.
I'd now like to ask Mr. Ron Crumps, our Executive Director for Facilities, to come forward.
More money.
Thank you, Erica. Good evening, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, board members, and Dr. Postlewaite. CCSD Ops held our 16th annual golf tournament on October 18th in honor of Mark Cobb and Ron McWirt. It's a scholarship fund. 16th annual tournament, we raised almost $15,000. That brings our 16-year total to $178,000 and allows us to award 5 scholarships this spring for $25 each to deserving students. So we're very excited about that. We like to snap a photo each year with our check. So Dr. Postlewaite and Mrs. Darby, I wonder if you would join Tammy Cobb up here. And we also, I think, have representatives from several of our corporate sponsors. Fred Dalla from Bonnets Flooring. Please join us. Nelson Siren from the Bud Group. From SCE&G, Robbie Garvin, and Mike Knight from Tyco Integrated Security. So thanks to all of you. Here we go.
Photobomb.
Good.
Did Did I say $25?
You did.
$2,500. Thank you.
You were keeping it for a roof
Did you
or
say,
something.
yeah, no, thank you.
That concludes tonight's special recognitions.
Thank you.
Erica, could you just announce to us, I know we'll recognize them, but the Baptist Hill football teams win on Friday, so everybody knows? and-
Yes, so the Baptist Hill football team will be playing for the state championship on Friday at 8:30 at the Benedict College Football Stadium. So we'll be sharing more information. We'll be sharing more information about that. Also, tickets for the game, we'll be selling some here at 75 Calhoun Street, as well as at the high school. And there may be some local businesses who will also sell tickets for us, because all tickets that are sold here in Charleston will benefit Baptist Hill High School. So we want to make sure we get them before we get to Columbia.
Oh, excellent, thank you.
Okay, so Friday, 8 o'clock, Benedict College, and you'll let us know about how to buy tickets, because we want to do those.
Correct.
Buy them here.
No, they will be here tomorrow at
Okay.
75 Calhoun Street,
Okay.
actually at the high school, as well as some local businesses.
Okay,
But we'll
great.
share the names of those businesses in the morning.
Awesome, thank you very much. Okay, next item is visitors and public comment.
Madam Chair, may
Yes.
I clarify one thing? When we were doing the substitute teacher rate motion, did we clarify in the motion that it is effective this Friday, December 1st?
Yes, we did.
You did. Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Okay, Reverend Matt?
Just want to read board policy. Board meetings shall be conducted in an orderly and efficient manner. Any individual who desires to appear before a regular meeting of the board shall sign in prior to 5:15 p.m. open session and will be allowed a maximum of 2 minutes to address the board. No speaker may use public comment to discuss personnel matters or otherwise private or confidential. Speakers are to discuss issues and not individuals. We ask that you please come in the following manner: John Snowden, Reverend Patricia Mazik, Renelle Barclay, and Hattie Brown.
I promise you, I would be there. Text you.
Members of the school board, Dr. Postlewaite, thank you for this opportunity. We wanted, on behalf of the faculty, the staff, and the students, and the alumni from Military Magnet Academy, wanted to thank you for your support of our 20th year anniversary. It was a marvelous event. We had an opportunity for public tours. The school looked fabulous. It was really nice work. Thank you for that. And we were able to roll in with the celebration some fundraising for our foundation. My name is John Snowden, and I'm currently chairman of the foundation board. We feel that we are an important part of this process that makes a difference in Charleston County students between the 6th grade and the 12th grade. So we wanted to thank you for that opportunity. And we also have a memento we'd like to leave. We created a memento for the gala. We had about 250 or 300 people at the gala.
Outstanding.
And we had alumni from previous years talking about their experiences. It was a wonderful event, and everybody really enjoyed it. So again, thank you very much. While we're handing these out, I would like to recognize all the supporters from Military Magnet Academy. If would you stand, please?
We can share.
There he is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we would
Thank you.
like to thank y'all for all y'all do for Military Magnet as well. Thank y'all.
Next. Yeah. Yes.
My dear sister, Marion Wright Elliman, a guest columnist for The Chronicle, penned a column titled Child Watch, Why America May Go to Hell. What if you rephrase that, Child Watch, Why Charleston County School District May Go to Hell? Charleston County School District suffers from bubek-banism. Bubek-banism is a not-so-rare disease, a virus by a tribe called the Bubek Band, or BBB for short. The BBB are a group of miseducated Negroes who practice, initiate, or participate in racism and discrimination against people of their own race, usually at the coercion of another race, particularly the white race. CCSD used the Bubek Band to discriminate, and then they sweep it under the rug. They tell victims not to discuss what happened, do not say anything. In one particular case, she has been swept under the rug for 5 years. Charleston County School District, with the assistance of the Bubek Band, terminated her when she was within 3 years of retirement. Never mind that you discriminated against her in 4 categories: race, age, gender, and disability. In addition, you violated her constitutional right to procedural due process by denying her a hearing. You did not care about violating state law as long as you got rid of her. You could have swept it under the rug. You knew you could sweep it under the rug like you've done so many other African-American teachers in the past. You used a safety evaluation system, an arm of the state adept system, to paint her as the worst teacher in the district, even though she had all but dissertation toward her doctor's degree in education leadership, 30 years plus of teaching in 5 states of the United States of America. All she needs is a writ of certiorari, and she goes to the Supreme Court. Miracles do happen. Why were you afraid of her? Who put a hit on her? What? That's what I want to know. I challenge the Department of Justice to investigate CCSD's practice of discrimination against teachers, particularly African-American teachers. I have my sword in my hand. This is a game of thrones. But you know who sits on the throne? The King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. He's the King of the East, King of the North, King of the South, and King of the West. He's the King of Kings. She has her sword in her hand. You can continue to sweep things under the rug.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, I guess with all that said, my comments don't really mean nothing, but I'm here to say I just moved here from Jersey about 4 years ago. I live on James Island. I have a mentoring program over there, and we are here to talk about the bus issue. I just want to say one thing. In Jersey, when you talk about a bus depot, that's a building that you put things in. That's a bus depot. A parking lot is not a bus depot, okay? When you talk about a bus depot, you put things in it and you keep things in it from the fumes so it won't get out to the community. Our kids have to live many, many years after this bus thing go away. We're talking about health issues. We're talking about respiratory problems. We're talking about kids that can't breathe good. What are we trying to do here? Is it all about money? Because I come here, I see checks and everything given to the board. I mean, are the kids in our community means anything to y'all? I'm talking about to everybody that's sitting up there. You know what I'm saying? I'm not just talking about 1 or 2. I'm talking about all of y'all. I come here, I see big checks to the side, you taking pictures and all that. Come on. It's about the kids. It's about the health. It's about the youth. It's about our community. It's not about presenting checks to the board and giving out papers and saying we having this and talking about football games and this and that. We are here to talk about a school district. I'm new to the island, but look at me. I'm here for y'all. Anything y'all need, I'm here. My name is Roy Nell Barclay from Newark, New Jersey, and I don't lay down easy. And I don't shake hands to smile at people. Thank you.
My name is Hattie Brown, and I say no to the bus lot on the James Island Elementary School. I live in that neighborhood. I live about 200 feet away where the bus is supposed to be parked. I did some research today on my computer. My first topic is toxic chemical where you live. Gasoline has health consequences that can last several years. Diesel is another fuel containing hydrocarbon. It's a byproduct of gasoline, and it's used primarily in train, buses, and farm vehicles. When you regularly come into contact with fumes from gasoline or diesel, your lungs may start to deteriorate over time. A 2012 study by the World Health Organization found an increased risk of lung cancer in people who are regularly exposed to diesel fumes. My next topic is, how can diesel fuel affect my health? Long-term exposure to diesel exhaust can cause chronic respiratory symptoms such as persistent cough and mucus, bronchitis, and reduced lung capacity. Long-term exposure to diesel fuel vapor can cause kidney damage and lower the blood ability to clot. If you have asthma, which I do, emphysema, heart disease, or allergies, exposure to diesel exhaust can worsen those symptoms. And I'd like to add that 39 buses, I think that's what it was, or 37, but 39 buses starting up in the morning about 5:30 can be irritating to you because of loss of sleep, and it could cause your blood pressure to rise. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have David Wallace, Eugene Frazier, Edward Green, and Councilman Johnson. Or I should say Reverend Wallace. Yeah.
Good evening. I'm David Wallace, and I serve as the interim senior pastor of St. James Presbyterian Church USA, and I'm a member of the James Island Interfaith Action Committee. Our ecumenical consortium of churches is opposed to the decision of the Charleston County School District Board of Trustees to place a bus lot depot within the African American community. I understand that this matter has been on the school board's agenda for most of 2016. After the James Island Interfaith Action Committee was informed about this decision, we got involved because we share the concern of community members that a bus lot would have a negative impact on our community. This kind of facility would have a negative impact with a large concentration of buses in one location. The diesel fuel used by the buses would negatively impact the health of the residents. In addition, the traffic patterns would increase with the constant egress and regress of bus movement, which would impact the safety and security of both children and adults. It has been documented that minorities and persons of lower economic status are unfairly bearing an excessive burden of environmental hazards, while the benefits of production that result in hazardous waste are dispersed among the larger community. As a result, our minority communities suffer disproportionately from environmental racism. We suffer because we are perceived as being weak and passive, and sometimes people think we won't say anything or do anything, and so they feel that we are of no consequence. Thus, governmental agencies and businesses have a long history of dumping anything in our communities because we tend not to resist their actions, thus making us the host of environmental hazardous facilities. I therefore request that you do the right thing and refrain from being biased toward our community and consider locating commercial industrial space on James Island or elsewhere for the bus lot, or pursuing a waiver to split the buses between the schools, or simply locating the buses at Azalea Avenue. I trust that you will take these considerations into action and make the right decision and treat the black community the same way you would treat any other community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those who are here from James Island, please stand up.
Thank you. My My name is Eugene Frazier. I live at 1578 Westwood Drive on James Island. I'm 81 years old, born and raised on James Island, a short distance, maybe a couple of 4 blocks from where James Island Elementary School and the W. Gresham Mega School presently sits. Besides spending 6 years in the United States Army, came out and joined the police department and the U.S. Marshal Service for 34 years. I spent 5 years on the James Island Constituent School Board number 3. I don't take those things lightly. Attending several meetings with this school board, I thought the problem of parking 29 to 30 school bus at the elementary school on James Island, understandably, it's a health hazard and a safety hazard for the community and the children and the entire community. And looking at the whole situation, it appears to me that if any other segment of society other than African American does not want a specific problem in their community, then it is dumped in the lap of African American to deal with. Local government making all kind of dubious excuses such as cost, the transportation, the children, at the same time as though does not apply to anything else. And I'm not going to stay but one second more. When I was a young boy coming up, I want you to listen to school board, listen to this. You know what it is. When I was coming up, the older people told me, look at me and says, when I was trying to play games, look here, boy, you can't fool me. If you look like a duck, walk like a duck, and act like a duck and quack like a duck, it's a duck.
So the board members, good afternoon. My name is Edward Green. I live at 1115 Seaside Lane. Born, raised on James Island, attending W. Gresham Mega School. Does James Presbyterian Church have a cemetery right next door to the existing elementary school? And for a while, I attended the meeting that you have at the elementary school. And I saw the surveyor surveying the property. And this is what you call putting the cart in front of the horse. If you want to actually see or talk to the people on James Island, I thought that you should consider them first before you survey the land. We asked a gentleman a while back, say, how much it costs for y'all to put the survey? They don't know or forgot about it. You know about this all the time. It seems like you should have brought this to the community and find out an involvement in the community before you start putting the survey in it. Now, just the way you spend tax dollars money, the school board, just the way you spend it, that you don't ask people who involvement first, go ahead and decide first, and then want to ask the people later. Now, we put y'all in office. And if just the way that y'all going to treat the people of the community, you don't need to be there. Please consider no to the bus depot on James Island. Thank you.
Good afternoon, board members. I'm Anna Johnson, County Council member, representative for District 8, which includes the James Island Elementary School. And I'm just here again today to ask you to please reconsider your decision to put the bus depot on the James Island Elementary School lot. I was here before at request of the constituents in the area, and they called me again today. I didn't think I was going to be here, but here again, they are so concerned about this action that you plan to do in the community, considering their many concerns about health issues, safety for their children, and the environment. It really is something that they are highly concerned about. I also heard this afternoon that a bald eagle was sighted in the area, actually on the school, James Allen School property. And I'd like to think that individual lives and health is of more concern than animals, but if we have to say, even to look at the ecosystem in the area, we should take all of this into consideration as you ponder where to put the bus lot. Please do not put a bus lot in any community. That's why we have the industrial zoning for that. And I understand the part that you have to play putting a bus lot somewhere, or taking the bus lot and, for the schools to be able to have their children to come back and forth. So why not consider putting this bus lot, not a bus lot, but dividing the buses among the schools as they did before? I just can't understand why you can't give any consideration to 2 or 3 areas that you can put the buses, divide the buses, so that you're not putting all the weight on this one community, and you're killing the future that they have already worked towards improving in their community. Please try to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Deborah Barrett, Ron Latson, Cheryl Cromwell, and Melinda Hamilton.
Who's the first one you called? First one, Reverend Mac, you called, couldn't hear.
Deborah Barrett.
Peace to all of you. Just to say a few things. The community has repeatedly voiced their concerns about placing the bus depot in the middle of a place in which they reside and a place where children learn and play. It appears that you're not listening to their concerns. It seems that we are experiencing a ping-pong effect with no regards for the community and the children under your guidance and care. When all seemed to have been well, it was not well. So I say to you tonight, please make it well for the community and the children, and find a suitable place for the bus outside of our residential community. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ron Ladson. This is my first question is basically addressed to the board, and I have a few comments after that. But this is a question that I would respectfully if y'all would respond to the public and give us a response. Okay. Today, my question is, approximately several weeks ago, we met with Mr. Back and one associate, and they made a decision. A decision was made, a proposal, from my understanding with them. They said the bus was going to be located at the old James Allen High School, which is the Fort Johnson Middle School currently. So upon that conclusion, I went and I met a couple friends. Basically, it was, just casually from up the street. And I told them the decision was made. So basically, it's like, oh no, that's not going to happen, not here. So my question is, from the point that we met, and y'all told us specifically what took place from that point, I think y'all owe us a response. So the decision that y'all made, the worst scenario, and this is my conclusion, my suggestion, if y'all decide that it have to go throughout the communities, throughout all the communities, we would like y'all to just go ahead and distribute it equally throughout all the communities. But we don't really want that throughout any of the community. But that's a choice that we respectfully should have. It should not be in just that area. Basically, that's my question, and I'd like a response.
We can't respond at this time, but we're going to discuss that item as soon as the public comment's over. So I'm sure we'll address it then.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. About 2 weeks ago, I sent all of you an email, one of many communications that we've had with the board over the last probably 2 years. And I stand here not only in protest, but I'm infuriated. I'm infuriated that we are continuously having to come out here to fight against something that we have said countless times to Barawi and his team that we do not want in our community. Now, the part that upset me the most is this is how I explained it to myself. I saw a circus act put on at the old James Island High, ensuring that every nearby resident was notified about the bus lot meeting through broadcasts, print media, and robocalls. Imagine my surprise when I saw Reverend Mack welcoming the crowd and multiple board members in attendance. Yet the Grimble community had to depend on happenstance for notifications. No communication from Reverend Mack, who is assigned to our district, and no board member attendance at our meetings. Meetings that occurred over the course of at least a year with continued expressions of opposition and concern were perpetually met with deaf ears. Nevertheless, one meeting was held at Fort Johnson, and it solidified a new location and that recommendation to place the buses back at James Island Elementary School. So tell me how this happens. So these timeless antics that you play are not new. You are just the new players assigned to perpetuate the disenfranchisement of the Black community. I am only left to ask you today, how do you want to be remembered in history? Do you want to be known as a disruptor of the status quo or a slave to a system that continues to the deprivation of a people? This question may not feel relevant to you at this instance, but when the cultural climate transforms and unravel this overt bias that we have here in Charleston, will it matter to you then? Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Good evening. I'm Melinda Hamilton, and I'm here on behalf of the League of Women Voters. First, I want to thank you for serving on the school board. We know that school board service is one of the most important public service positions in our community, and this board is hard work. The League of Women Voters is deeply concerned about public education and the 113,000 children served by public schools in Berkeley, Charleston, and Dorchester counties. Whatever other educational opportunities there may be, as you all well know, the vast majority of our children depend on our public schools. The League was not surprised, but nonetheless deeply disappointed by the recent Supreme Court decision on Abbeville. That's all the more reason that our local school boards are important and that we must build a strong, well-informed advocacy for public education in general. I'm here to ask for your help. In 2018, 14 school board seats will be filled in our three-county area. In Charleston County, 26 seats will be filled on constituent school boards. The League has been preparing for this election for some time. On February 24th, we will have a school board candidate training session. That's a Saturday morning. And in the next few days, we hope to have a finalized location for that. Scott Price, Executive Director of the South Carolina School Board Association, will be our keynote speaker. This is for prospective school board candidates and those who would support them. We'd love for you to be with us, but more importantly, if you know someone who might consider running for the school board or who would like to work on educational advocacy, please send them to us. The League will not endorse candidates, but we will work hard to inform them and help them prepare as candidates. Thank you.
Thank you. Treva Williams, Elizabeth Singleton, Vincent Matthews, and Mr. Griffin.
I have a request before I start. I showed up here tonight to sign myself up for 2 minutes, and also Rainique, knowing she couldn't get out of work, grab her kids, and be here by 5:15. So I'm wondering if I can just let her have my 2 minutes since she couldn't get here on time. Is that okay? Sure. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Rainique Sias, and I'm a member of Charleston Area Justice Ministry. I live in North Charleston, and I work in Mount Pleasant. I have 2 kids that attend Bell Hall in Mount Pleasant, and my oldest daughter attends Stall High School. It's incredibly important to me that my children have positive educational experiences. What makes a positive educational experience? It isn't solely grades and test scores. Relationships play a huge role in how the school day goes. I'm sure you all could agree that person-to-person interactions you have during the day can make it a good day or a bad day. And if those relationships aren't strong and aren't positive, then they can disrupt the rest of your day. When relationships are severely severed with no solution in sight, violence becomes the only answer for some of our kids. North Charleston is facing its highest murder rate ever. Many of these young men facing homicide charges spent time in Charleston County schools. We have the opportunity to change the future for our kids by teaching them how to build relationships and solve conflicts in healthy ways through restorative relationships and practices. 5 schools are in the process of implementing restorative practices this year. Initial reports from these schools is that the practice is much more difficult than just suspending a kid or writing up a teacher, because restorative practices requires hearing one another out and how our negative actions impact others. We've been hearing it's much more difficult, but we've also been hearing that it's much more impactful. School districts that use these circles and peer meditation reports that they help teachers with content instruction, and they promote students' communication skills and social emotional learning, which we know is an important component of academic achievement. None of my kids have restorative practices in their schools currently. I want that change for the 2017-2018 school year. This board has made a brave step forward in choosing to teach discipline instead of only punishing. You're on the right track. Please keep going and provide the necessary funding for every school to be trained in restorative practices. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Elizabeth Singleton. I reside at 1833 North Grimble Road. I attended the very first meeting on the bus lot situation nearly 2 years ago. It was suggested at that meeting by those in the neighborhood who attended that you chose, instead of choosing one of our locations, you had an empty lot over on Medway, which is the Riverland Elementary School, and Stiles Point. As you know, as I noted just recently, when you made your selections of schools, you put the 2 predominantly black schools in our neighborhood as your 2 first choices. Then you come down to Stiles Point and Riverland Drive as your second choices. I drove out to Riverland Drive today, and when I was told, along with others, that there was perhaps another plan for that location. I saw what that plan was. You've got a softball field out there, and they're in the process of putting a vegetable garden out there. And it's almost like it's the bias type situation. You value certain neighborhoods as one thing and other neighborhoods as another. Where we told them where the elementary school is located, it was the furthest most location from where all the schools are. Your better choices would have been either Stiles Point or a Riverland Drive. All the schools are over on the Riverland, on the Stiles Point location. You have one furthest most location that goes completely through a neighborhood on Grumble Road. It's not necessary that you do this. It seems like where we're concerned, we're less of a choice. Whereas your better choice would be where all the schools are located. And that's over on the Harbor View, Fort Johnson area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Vince Matthews, and I reside at 1833 North Grimble Road. That was my mother who spoke briefly before you. We appreciate the objective of what the school board is trying to do in terms of what the law requires, putting a bus lot in a centralized location. However, one thing that has been clear through the entire process of this is that the entire community of James Island has said that they don't want that type of industrial activity in their neighborhoods. As you know, James Island is primarily a residential area, and this is industrial use. And when you decide to choose one community over another, it gives the presence as if one place is being preferred over another. What's distinct about my community is that we are one of the oldest African American settlement communities in the county. My family has lived here for over 100 years. And it's one of the last areas that are still somewhat of a rural area. It retains the same cultural character, rural presence that was pristine from many, many years ago. And as such, it retains that environmental soundness. We still have the wild turkeys, deer, and other activities. And as you might have noticed from the email that I sent to you earlier today, just within the last month, within a couple of weeks, eagles have decided to use the retention pond by the school as a place for feeding, which means that there's a nest that's somewhere close by. We thought that the nest was within the cemetery that was right next to it, but we haven't been able to necessarily locate that. That has been reported to the Department of Natural Resources, and they are aware. They went out and looked at the site. So our request is not a difficult one. My understanding is that the record reflects that you appear to spend about $3.3 million for this bus lot. And so I believe that if you can spend that amount for the bus lot, that we should be able to choose a location in an industrial area that meets the needs and the request of the taxpayers, which means in a space that is industrial and not within our residential areas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Mine is more of a personal issue. About 5 months ago, I came before y'all to let y'all know my son was being bullied. Here's the police report where he got his lip busted. Student who did it received 5 days twice. This report has never made it to the solicitor's office. As a matter of fact, I found out from the North Charleston Police Department that the school handled it itself. Now, if I was to simple assault anybody in here, that man back there is going to put cuffs on me. But the school protected him to the point where they had my son sign a letter. Now, he's the victim, that he's going to stay away from his victimizer. This was done at the school. I brought this to your attention. I spoke to a Ms. Jennifer, Dr. Williams. I think even Ms. Nichols reached out to me when I sent an email. Ms. Jennifer said she investigated. It was taking care of this and that. I've called the 1-800 bullying number. I've got the school district bullying sheets here. Well, let's fast forward. 3 weeks ago. And everybody who has children, think about this. I received a phone call from the SRO. Here's the police report. That while my son was in the restroom using the commode, 2 upperclassmen came over the top, videotaped him, and put it on the internet. Think about that. That anger that y'all feel is the same anger I feel. I came before y'all. I've been asking, please, I've called and contacted, To this day, the principal has yet to call me and say, Mr. Griffin, we apologize. I've yet to hear from the principal. I don't understand that. Maybe y'all can explain it to me. One of the students, because they arrested him, had an outstanding warrant. So I go to the police department, and they're badgering me because they feel I'm being too harsh because I'm pursuing charges. Well, Mr. Griffin, you're going to affect their lives. They'll be put on the sexual registry. And my question and my wife's question is, my son is the victim. I'm not trying to hurt these children, but I've never gotten a chance to sit down and speak with the parents. I've never got a chance to sit across with the students. Two of the boys I know, very nice boys, but I've never been afforded that opportunity. There's a problem. I got to continue to follow up on this. The police department is hounding me. Mr. Griffin, you can't do that. We have the right to set the level of charges. They charged them with disorderly conduct. But under the state statute, it could be any sexual, but they're trying to defend the children. And again, it is not my goal to hurt the children. When we were growing up, this would be called a prank. But when it goes on the internet, it stays there for in perpetuity. My son, because he came the first time I addressed y'all, is over in the library. He said, Dad, nothing's going to happen. A couple days after this happens, and I will leave, I get a phone call. My son breaks a lamp in the Spanish class. Teacher was in the class. I said, well, what happened? He said, 2 boys was coming at me. I didn't know what they was going to do, and I was afraid, so I picked up a chair. Now, I've talked to the assistant principal, and I've agreed to pay for the lamp. We will pay for the lamp. I don't have no problem with that. But what do I do now? Do I turn my son loose and allow him to defend himself? Because he can. All we ask for is a safe learning environment. I done put 5 children through this district. He's number 5. I've gone through 4 superintendents. This is my 3rd boy to go through Military Magnet Academy. I come here, really, not even asking for help, but just to put it on the record. This is the problem I'm having. I'm going to continue with the police department and the solicitor's office, but there's a problem. Thank y'all.
Next, we have Carl Jackson, Jennifer Sherfield, and Audrey Mack.
Yes, thank you. My name's Carol Jackson. I'm a citizen of James Island, residing in the City Council District 12. I'm here once again to speak about the Bus 3 lot decisions that you're being asked to make tonight. I think it's pretty clear from the community that all of James Island cares about this issue greatly. And we don't understand really. I understand that there's a regulation that requires, or I don't know what the requirement is that would be able to change, but we know that there's a waiver so that you can ask to have buses that are dispersed and co-located to other schools. We think that that's the best result right now. While this is a temporary situation, you've got a shuffleboard going on as soon as the new middle school is finished in a couple of years, and we think that would be plenty of time for you to sit down with caring members of the community and really make a great plan. The property that's being considered now, you've been all over the place with James Island Elementary, then Megget, now back to James Island Elementary. And if any of you go out there and can appreciate, this is the last of a very special place of heritage and essentially sacred ground for the people whose families have been there for generations and hundreds of years. The St. James Foundation, where their ancestral graveyard is about to be annexed into the city of Charleston at their meeting tomorrow night, and they are going to get a rural residential designation. There should not be an industrial use next to a place where they're going to have a Gullah Geechee Heritage Foundation. So today you received a very compelling message from Jessica Hardesty Norris. She's a parent at the elementary school, but she's also a biohabitat landscape engineer. And she's done a lot of study about how this entire community between the library, the school, and Megget and the St. James Foundation could be an amazing resource for more than just James Island. It could be a regional attraction that would benefit generations in the future. So we really want you to take a time out, do something temporary, solve the problem that you currently have with needing to move the buses, and then come back to us and let us help you make the best plan. Thank you.
Hey, good evening. My name is Jennifer Sheffield, and this is my daughter, Katie. I'm a parent and a James Island resident of Katie at James Island Elementary. And James Island Elementary, I don't know, I believe is the first STEAM school, which is like the huge education push we have. And it's STEAM for all its wonderful facilities, which includes the outdoor classroom. So, I mean, people have mentioned sightings of a bald eagle. There's newspapers that write about our PE teacher who does classes after school for the community. There are kids that go and learn about not just fishing, but the environment, birds. So to me, 38 antiquated buses, and that's the big issue here, is they're antiquated, so they've got really bad admission levels, and I don't have all the numbers, but that 4 times a day is definitely going to have a huge effect. People have said, oh, well, they'll be gone before the kids get there, and they'll be gone before... This school is used all day long. There's after-school clubs, there's kaleidoscope, and the whole buses is not going to be effective. It's going to affect the air quality, it's going to be hazardous and danger. I totally agree we need to come up with a clear plan, there's something that works for the future. This kid's going to grow up and be an adult one day, and she's going to say, I stood in that meeting where they were talking about this and they didn't get it because this is where we're at. They say that they've researched, they've got a budget of $3.3 million and they've researched what other properties are available on James Island, and they haven't been able to come up with anything. I own 8 acres on James Island and nobody has approached me to see if I want to sell any portion of it.
Is it for sale?
It might be. I think for 3.3 I'll do the property and pave it for you. Just saying. There are other areas, I know it has gone back and forth and I know it's frustrating, but there are current properties like the Styles Point bus lot that's an empty vacant spot from the old building would be a perfect site for a temporary. The Riverland, there has to be a solution, and it's not dumping it on James Island Elementary. There's just too much there that will be ruined if we do this. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Audrey Mack, and I'm a SIC member at Frison Elementary and also a community advocate and a member of the Friends of Frison organization. First, we want to ask those who are associated with Frison, if you're here, please stand. We have a parent in the back, Todd and Michelle, I see you there. On behalf of the community, the SIC board, and the Friends of Frison, we want to thank you for your work on Frison becoming a Montessori school. We've been working at this since 2009, and we think we've finally come up with a very good solution. In light of that, we have a couple of questions as it relates to the verbiage, which you will be voting on later. With the verbiage as it is stated on the agenda, our question is, number 1, are you approving a Montessori program for Frison, or are you only including the program for the fiscal year 19 budget? Number 2, are you approving all children in the attendance zone to automatically be included in the program, or are you just including those students who now attend? There is a difference. And lastly, is there a quality management program that will be implemented in order to smooth the transition between the parents that are there now and the new parents that are coming? As you make your decision tonight, which we hope and we feel that you will vote in favor of this, please keep these questions in mind, and we look forward to your response to our questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Mack, if I could just say, we actually, when we approve the agenda, Because we had a unanimous vote on it at the committee of the whole, we approved the Montessori proposal, so it's approved. The questions, I think somebody on staff was taking notes, and I did as well, and we'll make sure that we get back to you with the answers on those. My understanding, I think when we discussed it at the committee of the whole, is that that would be the Montessori option for all of D9 for Johns Island. Yes, ma'am.
Just need clarity on that, and also about the employment
Sure.
program. The reason we're asking this is because we had like a breakdown in communication when it became a technology school. So
Okay.
we want to just make sure we're all on the same page.
Great. So, yep, Ms. Ambrose has, that, somebody wrote those down, right? Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Reverend Mack, the intention is to have that operate as our other Montessori schools, a full Montessori transitioned with an attendance zone, as
Correct.
well as the secondary. So it's going to be just like Hersey and West Ashley's and downtowns. Okay.
Correct. So all of the kids that attend, whether it lives on Johns Island or Watermiller Island, will be zoned for the Montessori school down at Frierson.
Okay, so we moved, we pulled the bus item out of the consent agenda and moved it to immediately following visitors and public comments. So Reverend Collins, you wanted to do that? Do you want to start the discussion? You want to have Mr. Broe?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am, I mean, yes. Mr. Burrow, you can come up if you like, come up to the podium. And I did pull it out of potential consent, so we have a chance to vote on it publicly in front of our constituents. But my concern, Mr. Burrow, is that we've heard numerous times the people on James Island with phone calls, emails, and direct approach that they do not want the buses in their community. And I know it costs a few $1 million to prepare a bus lot somewhere. So my question to you tonight is then, what is the biggest issue we're facing with the current bus lot where it's at now, where you're housing the buses at now? What is the issue? What is the source of the problem that brings us to this point that we feel we need to put it at elementary school on James Island?
There's a number of issues with putting it at the old Fort Johnson campus, which is why the idea wasn't presented initially, but when we were told we could not place it at Gresham Megget by the county, we had to come up with another option to compare it with James Island Elementary School, which was the last option that was presented to the board. The reasons against putting it at the Fort Johnson campus, number one is loss of green space that the kids actually use. So it is space that is used by the PE class and over recess and recreational sports. So they would lose space that is being utilized right now on that campus. That campus is doubling in population when we build the new school. So it's going to take up a lot more room than the old campus had.
The bus stop we have on Azalea, is that where the buses are being housed now? For James Island?
No, they're not. They're at the old Fort Johnson campus now.
How long have they been there?
Forever.
Forever?
Yeah.
A long time.
So what's the issue at Fort Johnson now? What's the issue?
We're going to be building a new school on that campus. They need to be relocated.
So what about the option of purchasing land somewhere between North Charleston and James Island, buying some land, or leasing some space? I know you have places like the mall, Citadel Mall property. You have Publix over there, Piggly Wiggly area.
So
there are lots of places around that you probably can, the Rhines parking lot. Have you considered leasing or purchasing any other land?
We have considered leasing, purchasing 23 sites, 15? 37 sites already. We've had recommendations from the public. They've come to us and said, hey, go check this land out. We've checked it out and haven't found any. The challenge with going off of James Island is the fact that the buses have to get to James Island to pick kids up, take them to school, go back off of James Island, then in the afternoon come back on James Island. And for those of us that have driven on Maybank Highway, that isn't always an easy thing. So leaving James Island to park these buses puts us in extremis for getting our kids to school on time in a safe manner.
What if they were on Johns Island?
Same issue. You're coming over the bridge.
On Maybank Highway.
In the last meeting we had, there was an accident on Maybank Highway
You
that
can't
day.
get over the bridge anyway.
So Johns Island is just as much of a challenge as West Ashley is.
So I think what I'm hearing, that you have some challenges, but the people don't want to bear the cost of those challenges in their community. And they're hoping that we come up with a better solution for these buses, that they feel like they're all being dumped on them in one community, instead of, as opposed to put them over several communities, minimizing the impact. So you have any ideas of putting them over several different schools?
We have a number of issues with that. The first of which is that we would require a state waiver because they have to fuel and service these vehicles. And so that's the first hurdle to cross, and we don't expect the state would give us a waiver. The second issue is simply the operation. Right now, with a single lot, if a driver is missing, if a bus is broken down and doesn't start, that's where we have replacement buses and replacement drivers. If we put 3 buses at this school, 3 buses at that school, 4 buses at this school, and a driver doesn't show or a bus breaks down, those kids aren't getting to school on time and we lose educational hours guaranteed.
Can you hold 1 second? Todd's got a question. I can come back to you.
I have questions.
All right, so Todd and then Michael.
And I would like to make a motion to move forward with the construction of the D3 bus lot at the site in between James Island Elementary and Gresham Megget.
And what side is that?
It's a site proposed by the district.
Okay.
And then just briefly, my reason for doing that, we've got parking lots at Wando High School, we got parking lots at Carrier Middle School. We just approved tonight a lot just outside of Wando High School, another lot also in it's in an area of brand new development. We've got Northwoods Middle School, you've got St. John's, all have lots, and I think the traffic patterns are just going to get worse and further inhibit our ability to get kids safely to school on time.
So I understand what you're saying. So your proposal is, in spite of the opposition, to move forward?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion from.
You don't have a second yet?
I know. So we have a motion from Todd. Do I have a second?
I'll second for
All
conversation.
right, so we have a second from Cindy. Michael, you had the next question.
Yes,
and then Cindy.
Jeff, can you produce the state, what the state is requiring in terms of bus locations? And because we're going toward a centralized bus lot. So do you guys have what the state is actually requiring us to do in writing, number one? And number two, have we asked the state for a waiver?
So the first question is, there are regulations that talk about the distributed bus lot, and there's also regulations that talk about what has to go on to a bus lot when you build it now. So there's 2 separate sets of instructions that we have to follow. And then regarding the waiver, I'll defer to Mr. Scott. Did we go to them in writing, or we just got a verbal?
I emailed this, the regional director,
Mm-hmm.
and he gave me a note.
That doesn't seem like,
A few months ago.
that doesn't, Jeff, I'm not trying to be
It's a regional director.
jerk, but that doesn't seem very official that you sent an email.
I'll go through, you're talking about.
Go ahead.
For us to get a waiver, bus lots have to be 10 miles apart from each other if they don't carry more than 25 buses per lot. That's the regulation. There's 4 pieces that we have to meet for that. One is that we have to prove that it would improve student safety, which it won't. We have to prove that it improves service delivery to students, which it won't. We have to prove that it reduces cost of service, which it won't. And then we have to not unduly impair vehicle maintenance service, which it will. So we can't meet any of those 4 categories for proof to the state that splitting this lot would meet that.
So we don't currently have a bus lot on James Island, but the majority of the buses that are on James Island currently are on the Camp Road, Fort Johnson site,
We call
correct?
it a bus lot, but it's not truly.
It's not truly a bus lot, but it's where we have the buses. So when did this requirement become known to us to the point that we are now, and I don't want to say I hate, I'm going to use one of the terms that one of our guest speakers used, which was a flip-flop. I was at that meeting at Fort Johnson, and I heard folks complain or have concern about the green space. And at that presentation, someone from the district mentioned that there wouldn't be much of green space impacted by the lot, that the school would still have adequate green space, not as much as it originally had, but still adequate green space. So if that was indeed an accurate statement. What has changed between then and now?
I don't think anything has changed between then and now. It's the definition of adequate. I don't refute that they will still have green space on that campus. If the bus lot was built at Fort Johnson, they will have green space. There's no refuting that. The football field will still be there. But they lose the entire field next to it. So it's your definition of adequate. The school has indicated that they would lose outdoor capabilities. The gym teacher stood up and said that. I lose the ability to do things with my kids outside if I don't have that area.
So,
and to clarify, James Allen Elementary School, the area we're talking about putting the bus lot is not used. It's not used at all. We're not taking away any green space for the play area of that school.
But I don't think that's the issue, as far as I can see, about the pushback that we're hearing or the concerns that we're hearing from the residents who live on Grimble Road and who are advocating for James Allen Elementary, and then turned around and they advocated for Gresham Megget. And I can say, luckily, the reason why Gresham Megget was taken off the table was because the county would not provide the zoning to put the bus lot there. My opinion, you guys then looked at other options. You looked at which made sense. You go to James Allen, you go to the Camp Road site where we have 20, how many buses there? 25, 27 buses there currently. It made sense, I think. You talk to the community says, no, 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 no. And I got the emails just like the rest of us. They basically cited the same concerns that the folks who are here today. They cited traffic congestion, exhaust, quality of life, right? And so now we're back to where we were initially, which was folks of certain communities feeling that their impact and their concerns aren't addressed and aren't heard because others don't want it in their community. So you have to understand what the optics looks like. The optics say, we're going to put it in a black neighborhood, they don't want it, we move it, we're going to put it in another neighborhood, they don't want it, well, I guess you black folk going to have to deal with this bus lot. I'm going to say, I don't think that's your intent. I don't think that's the district's intent. But it's optics.
I understand.
And what it looks like is what it is. That's what the gentleman said, if it quack like, walk like, right? So that's where we are. So I don't want to belabor this point. And I understand that, Mr. Scott, that you sent an email to the gentleman. And so I would like for us, an email is fine, it's nice, but it's not official, right? It's like, hey, guy, how you doing? We want a waiver. Can you give us one? No, I don't think so. I understand that there are 4 criteria that we must see and we must meet. I understand about the need to have a bus lot in an area to serve certain students because it reduces the amount of lost seat time that children are potentially dealing with. I understand that. I get that. I created the rubric for the transportation, so I understand that. My question now becomes, if Todd's motion, which was seconded by Cindy, does not pass tonight, what is our next step? That's the hypothetical. If that motion does not pass, then where do we go from here? Because if the motion fails, it's not going on James Allen Elementary School because the vote said so. So then what do we do?
So I can answer that. I don't know the result, but the initial information is that we will not complete the new Fort Johnson Middle School on time because those buses will remain there until we come up with another solution. So right now, we will not complete that middle school construction on time because we have to leave the buses there.
So right now, we're looking at an all or none scenario. All or none. Either we build it at James Allen Elementary or we're not going to complete the building of the new Fort Johnson Middle on time. There's no in between. There's no wiggle room. There's no other way out. Nothing. That's all we got.
At this point, yes, sir.
All right, Cindy?
Well, this wasn't initially what I was going to say, but Mr. Baroe, I want to apologize in particular for the board members who were sitting on this board on November 10th, 2014, when they instructed you by a board motion that was unanimously approved to construct a D3 bus lot on the James Island Elementary School property. And those same board members that are sitting here tonight could have asked those questions again when they voted again on March 9th, 2015, to reaffirm that location for that bus lot, as well as approve the bus lot for Stahl that sits closer to the houses next to Stahl than this does to the houses at James Island. So I apologize that they're beating you up for doing what they told you to do 3 years ago. I agree that this is a conversation that has come down to the wire. But this conversation started on August of 2010 when the board members who were here set the 1 cent referendum, and it said on James Island. This conversation started with those of us who were board members in 2010, 7 years ago. I'm sorry it's come to this last minute. But in those 7 years, this board has voted to put a bus lot 195 feet from a public recreation facility in Mount Pleasant. They have voted to expand the Azalea bus lot. That is 75 feet closer to the nearest house than the James Island Elementary School bus lot. They have voted to put 51 buses at Northwoods, which is 312 feet from the street of houses. Nobody likes these bus lots in and near their neighborhoods, but we all are very glad that public education includes free, unencumbered transportation. We have this argument all the time. Should schools be in the communities or should schools be out on non-community areas? And I don't know how you split the baby. I don't know how you say, give me all the good parts of the school and then go send up to Azalea, to my neighborhood, all the bad parts of the school. I don't know how you say, y'all are not doing this across the district and across the board when there are bus lots that are less than 400 feet from houses in 7 neighborhoods. So I don't like it. I don't like it any of these 7 times, but we've got people who have to go get those buses, traffic they have to get back through, and they have to get our kids on James Island to James Island. This is not, we get to choose this from thin air. There are certain problems. We have to pay those staff to drive to those buses. How do we hold them accountable? It's a lot of issues that we should have been discussing for 7 years. But I just think that since the board has, as recently as 2 years ago, said this is something we do. We put bus lots in schools in the middle of neighborhoods. We set this tone. We did this.
Reverend Collins? Reverend Collins?
So well, why don't you explain the change from James Island Elementary to the where it's currently at right now? You explain that.
Sure.
I want to,
See me.
I think it's wise that we be sensitive in our answers to the public and at the board. The statements don't reflect my opinion at all. But I desire a meaningful solution that's going to make everybody happy, which may cost a few dollars, but I don't want to impose on anyone or one to feel like we're dumping it in this community as opposed to that community. We just need to put it in a good location that's going to work. And I don't know if money's the issue or not, or the Maybank Highway's the issue. We can't control Maybank Highway, but we can't control where we purchase land at if we don't put it at their school. I think we have the time to still diligently seek some land at some place between Johns Island and James Island, even further out if necessary. And maybe that'd be the central location for all the buses. One neutral point for all the buses, and you don't have to have but one bus lot. Maybe it might be to close one down on the day, I don't know. But I think there's a better solution that we present ourselves as a school board as caring and considerate and respectful to all the community. And I'll stop right there.
Okay. Todd?
Madam Chair, I asked to call the question just based on the fact that we have discussed this 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I agree with that. That we have discussed this so many times throughout this year alone that I feel like all points have been covered.
Okay. I just wanted to say, too, though, I think The community has done a fantastic job of communicating with us. I know this is a really hard decision for all of us to make. I live right by a school, and my husband complains about the buses there. But we have been talking about it for a long time, and I want to make you all happy, and I also want to get your kids to school on time. So I know that's a real tough decision that we have to make. So I appreciate all the input you all have given us. All right, so Mr. Garrett has called the question. The motion is to...
I want to challenge the call with the 6 votes. Didn't someone else have a statement out here?
Robert's rules doesn't allow challenges to calling
when
the
you call
question.
the question's called, so.
Yes, but he needs 6 votes to officially do it.
No.
No,
Yes, it is.
doesn't.
Majority.
Ms. Coates, all
I mean,
right.
to end discussion, he needs 6 votes.
Ms. Coates, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Mr. Garrett?
I vote yes.
Reverend Collins?
No.
Mr. Miller?
No.
Ms. Jeffrey?
No.
Mr.
I
Staubs?
looked at the aerial of my school, and I got 25 buses there, so I'm going to vote yes. That's in my neighborhood.
It's 31, actually.
Yeah. Reverend Mack?
I vote no.
Okay, and I vote yes, the motion fails. Okay.
So we can offer a new motion.
2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
I like the district to consider,
Okay, Reverend Collins has the floor.
I like the district to consider hiring an investor to find some land for us that we can purchase.
What? Okay.
We have one already? All right, very good. Well, I'll take that back then. Very
And
good.
I'd like to make a motion that we relocate the Stahl High School buses to whatever bus lot the
That's not on the
board
table.
decides.
That's not on the table.
Neither is
No.
hiring a consultant to purchase property. So
We have one, though.
I'd like to make a motion that we move the bus lot that was approved at Northwoods to whatever bus lot is found for these buses.
Go get it done then on your own time.
I need a second. Madam Chair, I've made a motion. I need a,
No, she's out of order. That's not on the table tonight.
That is unacceptable to talk to another school board member.
all right. I need a second, or it can die for lack of a second, and I'll bring it back when we purchase land.
That's not on the table.
I don't.
I'm going to move the bus lot out of that
Kevin
neighborhood.
wants to make his
Okay,
vote too.
so the next item on the agenda is the.
Kate, Kevin called in to make his vote.
The vote failed. Does he want to vote?
Kevin,
I mean, he needs to
Kevin, you
call
there?
in.
Yeah, he said he wanted to vote.
Well, he needs to
You want to call your phone?
He can call my phone, or he can call the call-in number, Portia. I mean, we've already taken the vote.
Right, we're going to move on,
okay.
and because it failed, so unless he
Okay, all right,
wants,
well, it failed
he can bring
anyway.
it
That's okay.
back,
It failed
right.
anyway.
Right. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
Thank you. The first thing I want to do tonight is to thank you for the privilege of serving. It is indeed an honor to be able to serve children anywhere in this country, but especially in Charleston County. The second thing I'd like to do is to thank the staff for their hard work. The staff here, the staff in schools, our principals, our support staff could not work harder than they do. I appreciate all that they do, as I know you do as well. And I'd like to say that if I had the opportunity to relive the past 2 years as superintendent in Charleston County Schools, there are some things I would do differently. But life doesn't give us the opportunity to go back. It only gives us the opportunity to move forward. And for that, I am grateful. Thank you for your grace and for your vote of confidence. I appreciate the opportunity to continue to serve here. And I want to tell you that for as long as I do, I am committed to serving all of the children, to seeing that all of them have higher success rates than they have had in the past, and to addressing the inequities that exist. About half of our children do extremely well compared to their counterparts in this state and the rest of the nation. But the other half of our children don't fare so well. And that other half is overrepresented by children who come from multi-generational homes of poverty and from color. So if we're going to work together over the next couple years, I really hope that all of us can commit to some things. So I'm asking you to think with me tonight about some of those inequities that we would need to address, and I will enumerate some of them. First of all, we need more of our highly effective teachers to work in our most challenging schools, and we need to incentivize them to do that. We have many who work there now, but we also have many teachers in our most challenged schools that are brand new out of college trying to learn their craft, and it is a very heavy load to serve children who have additional needs beyond the school day. So we need to incentivize our most capable teachers to work in our most challenged schools. In order to do that without drawing talent away from other schools, we need to make sure that we get our starting salary up around $40,000. This is an ad that we took out in a national magazine to try to attract more teachers of color to come and work. Here's our full-page ad right in front of the front cover. And then on the opposite page, this is our ad, and the opposite page is an ad to come to work in a district with a starting salary of $51,000. Another thing we must do is to encourage and support our strong leaders to serve in challenged schools. We need to help them see that as part of their career development that is honored, appreciated, and rewarded. We need to make sure that more of our students arrive at school ready to learn. And we know that multi-generational poverty creates conditions that keep children from being able to learn. We know from experience and from evidence that those who start in robust, rigorous 3-year-old programs, who have 2 highly capable teachers in the classroom with them through the end of 3rd grade, are more likely to arrive at the end of 3rd grade with numeracy and literacy skills. We know that, and yet our funding doesn't allow us to do that to the extent that we want, at least not yet. But these are the problems that we need to try to solve. We know that because too many of our children of poverty and color arrive at school not ready to learn, they are over-identified and overrepresented in special education numbers. Many of the children who sit in special education classes may not belong there, but we're measuring developmental delays that have created an inequitable achievement level when they enter school. Our special education programs are state and federally mandated, but woefully underfunded. Because many of our children don't arrive at school with the ability to be self-directed, with what we call executive function well developed, they have social and emotional needs that aren't met. And so over time, children of color and poverty are overrepresented, disproportionately represented among those who enter the juvenile justice system. Because these issues linger and we don't use all of our time and effort to address them, we fail the opportunity that we have to address many of the inequities that the history of our region and the impoverishment of some people have created. This is a systems failure. The failure isn't any one person's fault, and many people have tried to address it. But while it's no one's fault, it's everyone's responsibility, and it's especially my responsibility. We have a good strategy coming forward to address that. The strategy has as one of its core values equity, and is heavily focused on talent development. But that strategy is useless if the board and superintendent don't learn to work together as a team, if we don't use our time to address these issues of inequities that have created horrendous variation in the achievement of children. We started last year by reading Jim Collins' Good to Great for the Social Sectors, and he talks about the need for disciplined people with disciplined thought and disciplined action to come together, to stay together, and to act together. So that is my request of you. Having given me this opportunity, I request that we focus together on addressing the inequities, that we come together as a team. You have arguably the hardest public service jobs in the state, perhaps in the nation. Jimmy Carter famously said his most difficult position as an elected official was as a school board member in Plains, Georgia. It's a very thankless job. You're overworked, you're underpaid, you're underappreciated, and sometimes, as I've learned of recent, you're viciously attacked. But nonetheless, there's no more important public service work to do. And I want to thank you again for giving me the opportunity to work with such a talented staff in schools with such dedicated leaders and teachers, and to work with you to address inequities and make a difference in the lives of thousands of children. Thank you. The other item on my agenda was to make sure that we have identified the legislative priorities correctly for the board. They're listed there. If there are any additional legislative priorities that you think we should talk about, we just need to make sure that we know, the staff knows what they are, so that we're advocating correctly for the district.
May we put these on the committee of the whole discussion for December, just so we can have a more robust discussion about the legislative agenda and how we want to move forward?
We'll be happy to do that. I think that probably would rightly go under the policy committee.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, is that okay with everybody? We do that? Okay, and then, do you want to make any comments on the financial statement?
It was presented to Audit and Finance. I would ask Kelly Meyer if she wants to say anything, and then...
Eric, was there anything of note that we need to know out of the presentation to Audit and Finance?
More importantly, you have your annual audit, so...
The next item on our agenda is our annual financial statement audit. So if you all would please come forward to do the funnest job there is, I'm sure.
Okay.
Yep,
Good
go
evening,
ahead.
Madam Chair, board members, and Dr. Postwaite. This evening, we have representatives from Clifton Larson Allen here to present our financial statement results for the fiscal year ended June 2017.
Thank you very much and welcome.
Hey, good evening. Going through the financial statements, you have a couple documents in front of you. I'm going to run through kind of a high level of what the four of them are. The first that you have in front of you is our financial statements. That's the larger packet of the items that you have. The second is the thinner packet, which includes the single audit report as well as the report on internal controls. And then the third deliverable is the unbound letter. That's our communication to the board. We have made a formal communication to the Audit and Finance Committee a couple weeks ago when we met with them. But that letter is a summary, high level of the issues and other items that we ran through during the course of the audit for the board's use. So going through a couple highlights within the results of the audit. If you look in the financial statements, you'll see that our opinion was an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion on the financials, which means that they are free of material misstatement, which means no material errors within the financials. Within the independent auditor's report on internal controls, there were two findings this year, both material weaknesses, one over payroll, one over information technology. Both of these items are repeats from last year. Management has been working on correcting, as they've outlined in their corrective action plan last year. But as long as those items still exist, they're not fully corrected, we do have to include as a finding each year. So, you know, from your all standpoint, it's still an issue in that they exist, but management has been making strides to improve.
Can you direct us to that in the report? Is it in the letter or is it in?
That is in the smaller bound report, and that is included on page see here. Starting on page 12.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Sure. So those are items 1 and 2 are your financial statement findings. As far as single audit findings, that would be finding number 3. That was related to subrecipient monitoring within the special education program. It was not a material weakness, it was a significant deficiency, which means that it was not a material item of noncompliance, but it's something that you all need to be aware of as a board that did exist. But management has developed a corrective action plan for that as well, and they're working on implementing that for fiscal year 18. So looking at the summary of results of the financial position, if you go into the financial statements, which is the bigger of the 2 documents that you have, pages 4 through 16 are the management's discussion and analysis, what we refer to as the MD&A. This provides you all with a high-level highlight and comparison of year-to-year results. This is in simple format, a summary of what happened, what changed, what occurred that resulted in the results that you all have within your financial statements currently. Within the numbers themselves, the general fund had a total fund balance of $42.1 million at the end of the year. This resulted in a change in fund balance of $29.8 million from the prior year, an increase, meaning your revenues were that much higher than your expenditures. Your total unassigned fund balance out of that 42.1 is 38.1 million. What unassigned means is that that's your fund balance that you have available for general expenditures of the school district. They're not committed or restricted to other purposes. In relation to the budget for the general fund, your revenues were $9.8 million higher than they were in the prior, or higher than the budget, and your expenses were $17.3 million lower than the budgeted expenditures. So that resulted in an ending fund balance, as I said, of $42.1 million, an increase of $29.8, which was an increase of $24.8 million over the $5 million budget fund balance increase that you all had budgeted for. So at the end of the day, your revenues were that much higher than your expenditures, and you were over budget in revenues, under budget in expenditures. And those schedules that I'm referring to are on page 71 of your financial statements. Are there any questions or anything else that you would like to have addressed?
So page 71, you said?
71, yes.
71.
Yes, that's the budget to actual schedule for the general fund.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anybody have any questions?
Good night.
Anybody? Thank you. I know y'all did a lot of work to come and make, 3 minutes of presentation to us, but thank you very much for taking the time and doing the analysis that you do. And also, I just want to say thank you to all of the staff, because being $9 million over in revenue and $17 million under in expense is the complete opposite direction than we'd been going in before. So I think to refund the fund balance, basically, which we didn't have before, is a huge. It was a lot of work that everybody did on every level, all of our employees. I know in the finance department, y'all worked really hard on it. But so thank you to you guys, and thank you to the staff for a really successful audit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Madam Chair, I have a question for the superintendent, though. So we have 42.1 and really 38 million unencumbered. What is our requirement? What is our policy 5%?
8%.
8%?
8.3%, which is 1 month.
And so, to put it in real dollars, is 38 million there? Or?
It's 9.1%.
So we have 9.1% in our fund balance of, and we have to have 8.3. So we're right on target. So we don't have a whole lot of extra there. But we also don't have to spend a lot of time rebuilding it.
You need just a little more in your unreserved.
So that was my question. I thought that, Kate, I thought you said that the 38 unencumbered was 9.1%.
8.3, I think.
Yeah, so the unassigned, and you
Right,
guys.
I'm looking for the unencumbered, or unassigned is what you guys call it. Where are we in terms of policy?
The unassigned, and I can't remember right off the top of my head, but it puts us like right right over 8%.
Right, it's 8.3.
8.3, so we are out of the woods according to the state. The state looks at 2 years prior for fund balance reserve. Of the board policy is 8.33% of next year's expenditure budget. So there's like two numbers that we have to look at. So remember when we reported earlier about the fiscal watch and the fiscal caution that the state will put us on if we are under 8.33%? We have met that requirement. As far as the board policy for next year's expenditures, we're at like 8%, which subtracts out the unencumbered piece, and that's just set aside for some liability insurance, I believe what that's for.
So basically, we need to keep between $38 and $40 million unassigned. And while we all call it unassigned, the fact is it has to stay there according to the State Department's watch and as well as our policy, and should we ever have to operate.
Correct, and remember this year we budgeted $7.5 million to add to that.
So when we get to 55, we can take some out, but at 38, we don't have any to take out.
Correct,
That's what I'm trying to look for. Okay.
No, not, you really need to get up to 40.
Yeah, we
before
think,
you
we
would
want
think
to
about-
do a lot better than 8.33%.
Right.
We're just off of the state watch.
Right. And then if we ever take it out again, it cannot be on recurring expenditures unless we have a plan for.
And I think that's what we have to do, because you hear $38 million and you hear $17 million, and all of us are shopping. And we need to remember that's not.
We're buying Promethean boards.
Well, we have to remember that ain't Promethean board money. So, right, so we don't have any extra cash at the end of the year we could funnel into an expense. That's the bottom line.
And just remember that our tax revenue won't start coming in until November and December of each year, and we have to do that tax anticipation note in the middle of the year. We would love to get away from not having to do that, because that would just be a cost savings. We were able
Use the fund balance and rebuild it when the tax rolls in. Oh, it's a good plan. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you guys very much. Thanks for being patient with us. The next item on the agenda is item 12.1, the superintendent's evaluation plan for 2018. Matt, do you want to address that at all?
So we had a lot of issues in preparation for this year's evaluation, and there were some late items that we were trying to include in the tool that was already established and agreed upon with the superintendent. In order for us not to encumber that situation again, I propose that we look at having a workshop in January at the committee of the whole meeting to look at the goals, the evaluation goals that we want to plan for the superintendent for the upcoming year, along with the contents and the tools and the format, and how we can shape and format that evaluation tool so that by November of 2018, we'll be able to have an effective tool already in place. But in that workshop, the goal is also to try to look at putting together a mid-year timeframe so that we can reassess and make sure that we're on target towards the goal and the plan that we're setting for the evaluation in November. So in hopes of saying, of course, doing two things, reevaluating, are we setting a positive outcome in the end, and where the superintendent may need additional tools to meet those goals, because the goal is not to set up an evaluation for failure, but for success on both ends, academic as well, and performance. So that's the content of the workshop, and hopefully with the outcome.
Madam Chair? Yep. I'd like to if that's a motion, I'd like to second it, but I would like to have the board make some kind of motion that has Eric heading this up, possibly for the first 90 days of 2018, because his vision and his plan isn't to create 1 year's tools. I think what he could do is create a tool that becomes a system of how we manage and evaluate success, and I'd like to see if the board would appoint Eric to spearhead that. I think it's much more complicated than one workshop. We're all going to walk away from that workshop, and there'll be tons of work to do, so no offense, Reverend Mack, but I think that we need to have somebody who's on point to actually bring this thing completely to fruition.
Okay, so Eric made the motion, Cindy, you seconded it, and Eric, are you good with Cindy's addition to the motion of you heading that up?
Mm-hmm.
Great. Reverend Collins, question?
I'll just make sure, I don't understand that, are you asking that you head up, the work for the next several years, or what are you asking for?
I said January to March in my
But I mean, is
statement.
the tool for several years or the tool for the coming year?
Well, any tool would be approved by the board,
Right.
and I would envision that we have an evaluation tool that's based on the district and is not related to who is the superintendent. Your best evaluation tools
Right.
have very little to do with the person and a whole lot to do with the processes and results.
That's right, I agree with that.
So that's why I wanted Eric to head that
I
up.
can definitely support that. I just wanted to make sure that the work we do in January is going to be a complete board work. And I would like to see him spearhead and be a liaison, whatever he wants to be with it. That's why I'd be happy to work by your side. But I certainly support the efforts. And I do want us to make sure that when we meet in January, that we set our vision for the next couple of years, the goals and vision for the next couple of years to be handed out. And in agreement with Dr. Postlewaite, to make sure that that's something not too lavish, we'll say, but it's reasonable goals that one could attain with reasonable effort. Thank you.
So, sure, Reverend Collins, I mean, the goals and vision, we've been working on those through the whole strategic planning
Right, those are
process.
20
So in other words, let
different-
me break it down further. What I mean is that this time, I want us to look at what Mr. Miller called the academic data, see where we are
Right, the
across the
dashboards.
district, and then set the marks of where we need to go.
Right, so that's what we would
Yeah,
work
so
on.
not just a general, but
Right.
see where we are, where our needs
So
are.
then, can we call the question for the motion?
Yep, so call the question. So, Ms. Coates?
Yes.
Reverend Collins? Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Jeffrey?
Yes.
Reverend Mack?
Yes.
And I vote yes, and the motion passes. And then,
Okay.
yep, Dr. Osman?
Could we contact districts like ours in South Carolina and perhaps in the southeast region and ask for a copy of their tool that they use for
yeah,
the superintendent's evaluation so that we have some
Eric, would you?
ideas with which to work?
If they're successful.
Yep. Yes,
If it's successful,
yes, we can do
yes.
that. Yeah.
Eric, you'll take care of that so we can have some ideas at the January meeting? Can you get that?
Maybe
Yeah,
say
I do.
the southeast region,
Okay, we can do that.
southeast region maybe.
Dr. Postlewaite, do you want to say anything about the constituent district annual reports for 2016-17? I know they're in our packets.
Thank you. There are two versions of them, the one that's in your packet and the one that was on the longer spreadsheet that Erica and team prepared, I believe. It's the sort of at a glance. We had a really enjoyable tour through the 8 constituent areas this fall with the constituent board chairs providing their board's report using a format that was the same. So at some point, we need to set aside time to go through the constituent board reports and cull the requests that they've made and the recommendations they've made. We won't take time to do that tonight because of the lateness of the hour and the fact that we're missing 3 members.
Thank you.
But so let's, if everybody reviews those, reads those, then we can plan a time to take a look at those. All right, our next meeting, we have upcoming meeting, because it's December, we have a committee of the whole and board meeting together, and we'll be meeting at Stall High School. So I'm sure Portia and Drew will, I don't know that time yet, I think that'll come out to us because it's committee of the whole, so it'll probably be
It should be one meeting the whole day for the.
but there'll be a committee of the whole meeting and then a board meeting after that.
Will
Okay.
our board meeting be the regular time or no?
I would think it would be, but I would think we would have a committee of the whole meeting, so we'd schedule it so that the board meeting would start 5:15. Okay?
And maybe I suggest if you have any student transfers or discipline issues, let's try to get those out of the way in advance, perhaps, if we can.
Okay, well, this is the only meeting
That will
we
happen
have,
on
so-
December
I know, so
11th.
if you get it early, we can get it out of the way.
Okay.
Since this will be our last board meeting of the year, I was wondering if you guys would be willing to maybe have one of our school choirs come in and sing some Christmas carols, some holiday carols, not Christmas.
Yeah, holiday.
Some holiday carols.
Well, I can tell you, Stahl's got a.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Remember, I had them come before.
Yeah,
so you-
I think that's a great idea, and I know.
I'd love it to be the
maybe
Stahl
two schools,
students since
maybe.
we're up there and they don't ever get any love from the
Maybe
North
two
Charleston
schools.
board.
Okay, so
members.
we'll have a school, maybe Stalls, and so they do a holiday presentation.
Maybe.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mike.
Maybe a school.
Holiday singing. Okay, so I
I'm
have,
going to say cupcakes, but singing's even better.
I have one request. We're also, I think staff is going to ask different ROTC groups to come and present the the flags, and for us to do the pledge going forward for board meetings. I just wanted to say quickly, I was very thankful this year at Thanksgiving for the wonderful staff that we have, principals, teachers, teacher assistants who work so hard in our schools, and thankful for board members that work really hard. And I would ask that we really work hard to work together this year and respect each other as board members so that we can move forward and focus on all that we've talked about tonight. So do I have a motion to?
To adjourn.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Meeting adjourned.